Today I'm very, very, very happy and fortunate and lucky to have Ken Lewis here. Give him a big round. Ken really needs no introduction. If you haven't been like in a cave for the last 10, 15 years, you've heard some of these. That's how I got
It's my first time out.
He has worked with everybody. You guys read the website, you've seen him. And not to mention, he's a great orator. He's going to entertain you today. He's also somebody that's giving back a little bit. He's showing you how he does it. So he's got AudioSchoolOnline. So if you guys want to get some pointers on recording and so on, you know, he does that. All a great guy. But you know, he's a musician. He could play music. He can arrange vocals. He can arrange instruments. The guy produces, the guy records, he's an engineer, he's got his stuff in his house. He is us on steroids.
Don't tell everybody that. I'm going to have to beef up my security system.
This is where we all want to be, right?
All of his stuff is in his house. He's not there right now. Text your friends. Well, I have two vicious dogs for anybody who wants to know.
So anyway, without any much more, anybody got a cell phone? What time is it? 11:59. Oh, okay, I'm done. Thank you so much for listening to me. It's 12 o'clock. Mr. Ken Lewis.
So this is a little surreal. I've never done a keynote before. I've done panels and stuff like that. So I'll try not to botch this too badly, and I'll try and keep you somewhat entertained. Hopefully I'll inspire you guys a little bit. Hopefully I'll give some of you people some really hard truths that you don't want to hear about the industry, but somebody's got to tell you. I guess they wanted me to break down like how I got here. So I'll give you the brief growing up history as fast as possible. 8 years old, my best friend got a guitar and started taking lessons, and I was so, I don't know if jealous was the word, I just wanted to play too. So I begged my parents for a guitar for 2 years, and finally at Christmas at 10 years old, they got me my first guitar. But they didn't only give me a guitar, they gave me the gift of music. And all through junior school and high school, I took guitar lessons, I played in bands. I got my first 4-track cassette Tascam recorder at 16 years old. All you people with these DAWs who are like, oh, you know, my DAW is not powerful enough. I can't make anything sound good on this, man. Go buy a 4-track cassette recorder and spend 2 years in your basement making recordings, and then come back to me and tell me how bad you have it. But that certainly gave me a love of recording. And then I went to Berklee College of Music and studied music production and engineering. Graduated December '91. Graduated with high honors, magna cum laude. Basically at Berklee, I lived in the studio. If there was a free minute of studio time, I was there. There used to be this sign-up sheet at lunchtime that if there was any like free time at night in the studios that wasn't being used, you could go at lunchtime and sign up for the time that night. Every day after lunch, I'd be right in that line, first in line, signing up. And my last 2 semesters at Berklee, I logged more solo engineering time than any other student in the entire program. You know, I didn't really understand what, you know, work ethic was or anything back then. It was just what I wanted to do. I couldn't, you know, I didn't want to study my stupid classes. I wanted to be in the studio. And the great thing about Berklee was I almost never studied because I was in the studio nonstop, and that was my studying. I was learning on the fly. But I graduated Berklee, went back to Ohio for a year, and I really got lucky. I got an engineering job at a pretty good 24-track studio. This was in the days of reel-to-reel tape. I'm very old. And so I worked there mostly as an overnight engineer for a while, but we got a couple label things in. Chuck D came in with an artist, and we got to meet and work with him. And then a year later, in 1993, I decided to move to New York City. But what precipitated that was I actually got fired from my engineering gig, which let me tell you was probably the best thing that ever happened to me, because I don't know if I would have come to New York so soon had it not happened. But you know, at the time, it's really like, you know, you're a bit humiliated over it. You're a bit like, how the heck did this happen to me? And it was over stupid politics. They wanted to hire somebody else that they thought could bring in more business than I could. And I think I had the last laugh. So on to New York City, 1993. I got a staff assisting gig at Soundtrack Studios in Midtown. A short walk from here. I could be there in 5 minutes. They started me on the intern schedule for a couple weeks and then moved up to assistant. And then eventually I moved myself up to engineer, and within a year's time they had built 3 new rooms. They had a 9-room facility in Midtown. This was back in the days. I don't know if you guys are really aware, but New York City used to have at least 50 or 70 major recording studios, multi-room facilities. I mean, there was Hit Factory and Sony and Sound on Sound and Right Track and all of these amazing studios that most of them are gone nowadays. But the way it used to go was you would get, you'd get a staff position at a big studio in New York or LA or Nashville, or Miami was just starting to emerge at the time, and you would work your way up. But nowadays, that path is almost not accessible to most people. They're just, the jobs aren't there, the studios aren't there to hire. So you find different ways to learn. But back then, I was staff at Soundtrack for 2.5 years. I went freelance in 1995. While I was staff, this is, I'll divert. I'm going to be a little scattered today because there's a lot to cover, but this is a bit important because I get asked all the time, yeah, I want to be a mix engineer, or I want to, how did you do it? And nobody really wants to hear the answer, and the answer is, I got a staff job at a good studio, and I worked my ass off, and I built up the ranks, and I built up my credit list, and people found out about me, and I got clients, and people kept hiring me, and I went freelance after 2.5 years there, and somehow survived it. But without that initial, staff gig, it did 2 things for me. It allowed me to be anonymous, because most of the people that were hiring you to engineer their gigs for you, they were just telling the front office, hey, just give us an engineer. They didn't care what engineer, which worked perfectly for me at the time because nobody knew me. I was a little bit green. I was a little bit cocky. I thought I was good at what I was doing, but I didn't know these people that I was working with, and they didn't know me, and it was fantastic. It just allowed me to kind of be a fly on the wall in the room and get my experience and cut my teeth. And what I found was, they'd always throw me in with the worst clients, and then I'd make them happy, and then they'd throw me in with better clients, and I'd make them happy, and they'd throw me in with better clients, and next thing you know, you got a couple platinum records, and you're like, okay, this is working out all right. So 2.5 years at Soundtrack, and I went freelance in 1995. I've been working for myself ever since. There is nothing better than working for yourself. If you can survive it, and if you can make a go of it, man, I will never go back to the other way around. It's just it's not going to be possible. This is another question I get all the time, especially from young people who think that you just wake up one day and you're a mix engineer. I didn't start referring to myself only as a mix engineer until about maybe 1999. So I started professionally engineering in 1992. 1999, I had piled up some good mixes along the way over the course of those years, and I had piled up a lot of great tracking credits and tons of really good experience, and I was getting really good at what I was doing. But at the top levels of the music industry, if you're a recording engineer, you're not a mix engineer. Doesn't mean you can't mix. That just doesn't mean, you don't call up Tony Maserati and go like, Tony, can you record my album for me? He'd be like, I don't do that. And so the real top mixers are not tracking guys. They all were at one point, but So around 1999, I said, okay, that's it. I'm going to turn down all tracking work, and I'm only going to take mix work, and I'm only going to refer to myself as a mix engineer, and I hope to God everybody gets it and starts hiring me to mix. And the first year of that transition was incredibly difficult. I turned down, I mean, a lot of work. And, and I lost some clients over it, but eventually it took about a year of really painful transition, and then it started to catch. And then I started getting regular mixing gigs, and word got around, and, the only thing that's going to change people's minds is you. You're in charge of your own narrative for whatever that is, and a lot of people get stuck in the narrative of, survival. You got to make a living, you got to put food on your plate. I understand that. I've seen so many guys who were like assistant engineers who had staff gigs who then became the assistant manager of the studio because it was more stable and the hours were predictable. And then they were the studio manager, or they were the assistant studio manager for the next 10 years, but they wanted to be the mixer or the producer or the whatever. So, control your own narrative as much as you can. Sometimes it's really painful. It's not always going to work out for you. Somehow, there's been a healthy amount of luck in how far I've gotten in my career. But I think that luck has been tempered by an insane amount of hard work. So, freelance since 1995. I met Kanye West in 2002 or 3. I think 2002. And that was certainly a good turning point in my career. But a lot of people will ask me, like, Ken, what was your big break? And I'm still waiting for it. Really, there's never been one time in my entire career that I can really point to go, that was the breakout. When I did that song, the phones wouldn't stop ringing for a year. Like, that's never happened to me. I think my big break, so to speak, was that I just keep getting on good records. And I just keep, the phone rings, I pick it up, I answer, I'm polite, I'm, ready to go. Hey, you need somebody in New York City in an hour? Yeah, no problem, dude, I'll be right there. That's the story of my life for 22 years now. And because you gotta remember, if somebody's calling you for work and you don't pick up, or you tell them you're busy, or you can't make it, or you have some reason, valid or invalid, excuse or not, somebody else is going to get that gig. And that person might get the next gig, and the next gig, and the next gig, and sooner or later you don't even know why you're not working, you're just not working. And I think I've probably survived in this industry a lot just because I try and make myself available. I always try and do great work. I think that's a huge lesson in this industry. I do a lot of things for a lot of different people, but one of the things I do is independent mixing. I mix for a lot of independent artists, and I hear time and time and time again, people come to me and they're like, well, the last mixer that we used, he made us feel like he was doing us a favor by allowing us to hire him. And, and his mixes were lackluster, and he didn't want to change them or fix them. And, to me that tells me that you don't take pride in your work, and that I'm going to take your gig. I've never understood the concept of a business transaction. If I agree to do a gig, and you agree to pay me for that, or whatever the agreement is, and I've taken on that work, at that moment, whatever you've agreed to, be it a great deal for you or a bad deal for you, but if you've agreed to it, you got to live up to that 100%. You can't, there's a lot of people who are like, well, this song sucks, so I'm not really going to put my heart and soul into it. But I love this song, so I'm going to work really hard on it. And that's a terrible way to do business. If you take a gig and people are paying you for it, they are paying you for your best. They're not paying you to judge their work. They're not paying you to go like, I'm not really feeling this artist right now. You know, let me half-ass this one. I'll take a paycheck and run, and you know, maybe next week I'll work on something I really like. I think the difference in most real pros is you know, there's no second rate. There's a lot of the people who I'm still working with today are people who I have known since nobody. Like, the reason I met Kanye West was Just Blaze. So, I met Just Blaze when he was an intern at the Cutting Room Studios. And Just Blaze was setting up my sessions and getting me sandwiches and just being as helpful as he could in any way that he could. Totally humble, laid-back guy. I had no idea he was even a producer for like a year that I knew him. And one day he comes to me and he says, Ken, I've got this really important meeting tomorrow with LL Cool J's people. And you know, this is going back a ways, maybe 15 years. And he's like, you know, and I want to play him some beats, but they're not mixed, and I'm wondering if you could stay after your session and help me mix them. And I'm like, sure. I had no idea the guy was even a producer. So I stayed after maybe a couple hours after that session and mixed a couple beats for him. His meeting went great. He started getting gigs. Within a year's time, he had kind of built himself up to where he was leaving the studio and he was becoming a producer in his own right. And fortunately, you know, to an extent, he took me with him. He was like, you know, okay, well, you're going to mix my records now. And for many years, I mixed a lot of what Just Blaze did, and I did a lot of playing on his records and whatnot. And I met Kanye through Just Blaze. So, you know, one of the bigger points here is I met Just Blaze as an intern. I've seen people treat interns like shit. I've seen people treat interns and like, you know, staff or whoever, just, you know, either with a callous lack of respect or complete disrespect or just, you know, whatever. But I guarantee you, some of those people, the intern at the record label that you go to see the president of, one day that intern might be the next president. And you know, and they're going to remember, you won't remember ever meeting them, but they'll remember you. And if they're the one that sends that ladder, and they see you, and they're like, oh yeah, that's the guy that, yeah, I remember him. Eject. So, you know, I think one of my themes in life is just try and treat people with respect, right up until the point where they've really earned your disrespect. And that happens a lot in the music industry. But until that point, always try and treat people with respect. There's one quote that I put up on my Facebook page recently that is pretty much guided my career. There's a guy named Randy Pausch. Does anybody know who Randy Pausch is? Wow. All right. You guys need to write this down. All right, this guy named Randy Pausch. He was like a jack of all trades, but he was like a college professor and did all of this amazing creative design stuff. And he got pancreatic cancer, and he did, before he got really sick, he did this thing called The Last Lecture. So I highly encourage you to Google Randy Pausch, The Last Lecture. It's about an hour long, and it will change your life.
How do you spell it?
Pausch is P-A-U-S-C-H. And it's The Last Lecture, and it's on YouTube, and it's absolutely transformative.
P-A-U-S-C-H.
Yes, Randy Pausch. So my favorite quote from The Last Lecture, which has always stuck with me, is this. The brick walls are there for a reason. The brick walls are not there to keep us out. The brick walls are there to give us a chance to show how badly we want something. Because the brick walls are there to stop the people who don't want it badly enough. The brick walls are there to stop other people. Now think about that for a second. Because that's the story of my career. And probably most of you guys who are trying to get a foothold in the music industry is like everywhere you turn, brick wall, shut down, no response. You know, oh, they said no, they didn't like it, it was mediocre. You know, they loved it, but they never got back to me. Like, you know, there's 1,000,001 reasons that you're hitting those brick walls, and I got news for you. Those brick walls are going to always be in front of you for whatever reason. I'm 22 years into a major label career. I've worked with everybody on the damn planet, and I hit brick walls in this industry all the time. It's just the nature of the beast. You've got to get used to it. You've got to grow a thick skin. You know, you got to get used to being ignored. You got to get used to hearing the word no. You got to get used to people judging your work in a way that you know, is abrasive or offensive or just you know, nonchalant or dismissive. It happens all the time. It still happens to me. But the flip side of that is you've got to have enough belief in yourself to know that those people don't matter. You know, they'll stop you today. As soon as you get some shine in another lane, those are the same people who are going to open their door wide for you the next time. They're going to be like, oh yeah, I remember you. Yeah, come on, I loved your stuff, man. It was great. Right. So just by a show of hands, can I see, like, who amongst us just is doing music for the love of it? You're a hobbyist, you don't want to work in this field professionally. It's okay. I think it should be most of the room. All right. Who is a current working professional making their living doing some sort of music-related thing? That's good. Now, who is aspiring to be that music professional? All right. Well, you know, you're in the right place. I've come to a lot of these conferences when I was on my way up, and you know, listen to people speak and drawn a lot of inspiration from it myself. But it's good to know what kind of crowd I'm speaking at. So let me give you a little bit of my background for the people who don't know who I am or what I have done. So I am kind of a jack of all trades. I'm a producer, I'm a mixer, songwriter, arranger, engineer, multi-instrumentalist, vocalist, sample recreator, and now teacher and founder of a school. And other than the school thing, all of those other roles, I've worked on Grammy-nominated, Grammy-winning albums, platinum albums, in every single one of those roles, and across many different genres, from mostly urban and pop to, you know, R&B, reggae, gospel, a little bit of rock. You know, really just, it really runs the spectrum. I've worked on 70-some gold records. I've got credits on 40 Grammy nominations. I've been nominated 7 times. Always the bridesmaid. It's really, let me tell you, it's painful when you actually think it's your time to win for the second time. And you're sitting there and somebody's name gets called. That's not who anybody expected. But I guess I need that fuel and motivation to keep going, because once you get a taste of the Grammy Awards, man, you want to go back, and I definitely want to go back. But I've worked with everybody from, so I sat down when I was preparing this speech, and I've been working on major label records for about 22 years, but the last 2 years of my career has hands down been the most unbelievable run that I've ever been on. And I wrote down a list of the marquee artists that I've worked with just in the last 2 years, in alphabetical order to keep it from being too confusing. 2 Chainz, Alicia Keys, Ariana Grande, Big Sean, Bruno Mars, Cher, Chris Webby, Ciara, Damian Marley, Drake, Eminem, Emmy Palmer, Fun, Future, Iggy Azalea, J. Cole, Jamie Foxx, Jay-Z, John Legend, Juicy J, Justin Bieber, Kanye West, Kat Dahlia, Kendrick Lamar, Cruella, Lana Del Rey, Lil Wayne, Luke James, Macklemore, Major Ali, Mark Ronson, Maxi Priest, Michael Franti, Mr. Vegas, Nikki Heaton, Notar, Rick Ross, Rob Thomas, Sean Kingston, Sean Paul, Shaggy, Skrizzly Adams, SWV, Time Flies, Wu-Tang Clan, and the Ex-Ambassadors.
Woo, woo.
It's been insane. I haven't slept much. Well, actually, I get enough sleep, but that leaves 16 hours a day to still work. It's been amazing, but you know, I think I've gotten to a point where I've diversified my career enough that I get called to do a lot of different things for a lot of different people. Where I'm trying to push my career right now is as a producer and a writer. As producers, I have a production partner named Brent Colatalo who's actually going to be on the 4 o'clock producer panel with Illmind and yeah, that's going to be a great panel. So check out Brent at 4. He's a fantastic producer, and he and I in the last couple of years have produced for Eminem, J. Cole, Kanye West, Ciara, Future. We have an upcoming potential cut. It's been cut. We don't know if it's going to ever come out with Macklemore, Kendrick Lamar, Emmy Palmer, Cam Anthony, a bunch of great new artists. And we're currently producing the Skrizzly Adams album for Atlantic Records. Skrizzly just got signed and we helped develop him. He just inked his deal and we just started making his album. He's going to be amazing. Remember that name, Skrizzly Adams. And he's like, I describe him as like the Lumineers produced by Lex Luger. Wow. It's a lot of like really trappy urban underpinnings with really like rootsy rock, you know, kind of folky stuff on top, and this guy's voice is second to none. So I've been on quite a tear for the last couple of years, but I am so not satisfied with where I'm at in my career, which may seem a little odd to all of you, but I think a lot of kind of people at my level feel the same way, and that's kind of what keeps us going. Like, we've always got bigger goals than what we're doing right now. We've always got bigger aspirations. You know, you get a taste of some success or, you know, whatever it is, and you just go like, all right, I want more. I want to get back to the Grammys. I want to hear my stuff on the radio again. I want to, you know, make a living doing music. You know, it wasn't always this nice of a run by any stretch, but I've always managed to get myself on some good records. I tend to be like a designated hitter. So, you know, take like a Manny American who has mixed, you know, well, like Manny or Serban has mixed, you know, half the music we hear on the radio is mixed by them. They'll work on entire albums. Usually I don't get called to work on entire albums, which is why I've got a stupid list of the last 2 years, because I get called a lot for utility roles. I might mix a single for this person, I might produce a song for that person, I might arrange a choir for that person, and I might recreate a sample for that person. And it's a different role every single day, and it's a different genre, and I'm really lucky to have the work. But where I'm pushing myself career-wise is as a producer-songwriter now. So me and Brent Colatalo are Catalyst. Catalyst is signed to Boy Wonder, who is one of the top hip-hop producers in the entire world. So we collaborate with Boy Wonder quite a lot. We're also semi-autonomous, so we can work on our own stuff. We don't have to work through him, but any chance you get to work with Boy Wonder, I highly encourage it. And we're signed to BMG Music Publishing as writers. So we got our hands in a lot of different things. Let's see, what else should I cover? If anybody saw my Facebook post last night, I was kind of thinking a lot about what I wanted to talk about, and I just wanted to briefly kind of run down what I think are qualities that will get you far in the music industry and probably in life. I'll just run it down, then I'll touch on a few things. Talent. Be nice. Be helpful. Don't be a douche. Have a good work ethic. Be trustworthy. Have attention to detail. Carry yourself with professionalism and a positive attitude. And have etiquette, especially if you're working in a studio environment. Etiquette is absolutely paramount. I've seen complete sessions fall apart because an assistant dropped etiquette for 10 seconds. Humility, self-confidence and belief in yourself. Because if you don't believe in yourself, if you don't believe that you can do it, why is anybody else going to believe that you can do it? It all has to start with you. And it starts with you putting in the work to get where you want to go. And especially since this room is mostly aspiring people who actually want to work in this industry and aren't earning that daily or weekly paycheck yet. Belief in yourself and self-confidence is not cockiness or arrogance. It's developed from putting in the time to be successful and positioning yourself in a way to get there. And everything on this list is going to help you. Appreciation for what you have. Be a team player and collaborate. Do good business and do fair business. Those two things are not mutually exclusive. Treat others with respect. These next three all kind of go together. Don't burn bridges needlessly. Boy, I have done that many times in my career. If you're going to end a relationship, just make absolutely sure that you really want to end it. And that goes towards 16, pick your battles. Know when you have a battle that's worth fighting and when you should just say, I want to say something so badly, I want to do something so badly, but it's probably in the heat of the moment and maybe I should step back from that and take a breather and say, that's not the best idea for my career long term. It's going to make me feel really good to really curse that person out, but tomorrow I'm going to really pay for it. And for maybe the next 10 years if you lose a client that you really wanted over it. So pick your battles and know your limits and don't cross them. And that's a biggie. So if you go into a contract negotiation or a rate negotiation, say somebody wants to hire you to produce their song or produce their record or whatever they want to do. Before you get into that negotiation, know what your bottom line is. Know where your absolute no, I will not go below this is. Because if you don't know what that bottom line is before you walk through that door, you're going to cross it, you're going to do a deal that you're unhappy with, you're going to resent the person you did the deal with, and you're going to do bad work because of it. And the whole thing is going to be for naught. And one of the most powerful words in the music industry, only if you're willing to stand behind it, is the word no. The number of times that I have said no to people in my career because they were trying to get me for less than I knew I was worth, and then, I walk from the table, thank you very much, I wish, I really want to do this project, I wish it would have worked out, but the business just isn't right, or the terms just aren't right, or the situation just isn't right. I'm sorry. At least half those people come back. And the other half that don't come back, you don't want to work with them anyway. Why would you want to work with somebody who just wants to, take advantage of you? I mean, you get taken advantage of in this industry all the time. It's the nature of the beast, but, there's a limit for everybody. But know where your lines are and don't cross them when you're getting into negotiations and rate battles and things like that. Loyalty. Hopefully that goes without saying, but if somebody expects that from you and you expect that from them, there's nothing worse than that line being crossed. That's just, you'll end your relationships immediately, other people will find out and they will want nothing to do with you. So, tread lightly, know who your camp is, know who your team is, and make sure that you roll with those people. Passion. Are you guys doing this because you love music, because you can't see yourself doing anything else? Or are you doing it because you think you're going to make $1 million and get lots of chicks? Hopefully those two things are not mutually exclusive and you can do all of the above. But if you're not in this because you absolutely love music and you can't envision yourself doing anything else, you're probably in it for the wrong reasons. And you should probably reassess. Because the reality is that most of the people who raised your hands, who want to be professionals, a high percentage of you may not make it. It's the nature of the music industry. This is a terrible, terrible industry, and I don't envy anybody trying to get into it. But the truth of the matter is, somebody's going to make it, And my philosophy has always been, well, somebody's going to make it. Why not me? Why can't I be that one? And you know, I think about that all the time. You know, now we're really trying to break through as producers, and we've gotten some really great looks, but we haven't had that big hit yet. And I always go like, well, somebody's going to write the next big hit. Why can't it be us? It's going to be us. It will. It's not a question of if. For me in my career, it's not a question of if I'm going to get where I'm going to go. To me, it's always a question of how am I going to get there? Let me set out a game plan to get there. Let me execute it. Let me not give up. Let me not, you know, when I hit those brick walls, let me, you know, go around them or climb over them or do whatever, because those walls weren't meant for me. They were meant for everybody else. Share and teach. Nobody lost anything from teaching somebody else something. I could teach every single one of you in this entire room everything that I know, and you're still not going to be me. You're still not going to put things together the way I would. You still don't have my track record and my experience and my credentials and my passion for this and all of that. But you'll be yourself, and you'll build your own clientele in your own way, and that's not going to affect me at all. I think two of my favorite phrases that kind of emphasize that is a rising tide lifts all boats, and what is the a candle loses nothing from lighting another candle. Think about that. That's always stuck with me. And I guarantee you that if you teach somebody something that really helps them, that really like opens their eyes to something or gets them past you know, a stumbling block, or really, you know, enhances their career or their life in some way, the one who's going to benefit most from it is you. You're going to feel great about that, and you're going to want to do it again. And so, you know, I encourage you, as you climb the ladder of the music industry, whoever you are, wherever you are in it, you will always look back and see people who were you. And I see a whole lot of people who were me. I mean, the only difference between most of the people in this room and me is 22 years of putting one foot in front of the other and waking up every day and just working my ass off. And I still do that. I still work 7 days a week. At this point, I don't know if it's because I want to, or I have to, or I'm scared that the whole thing will go away tomorrow. You know, but still, I'm still putting in 80, 90, 100-hour weeks, and you know, but that's why I have that crazy list. So share and teach. And to that end, who here has seen my school, AudioSchoolOnline? All right, that is fantastic. For those who haven't, I have a school. I think it's really good. It's called AudioSchoolOnline.com. And basically what I do is I put all of my skills and techniques and talents and knowledge out in these kind of video tutorials on mixing and on production and on recording and on sampling and on everything under the sun. And they're really inexpensive, and I'm nothing against SAE or Berkeley or Full Sail or any of those places, but I'm trying to be the counterbalance to all of that. For the people who can't afford Berkeley, who has become a rich man's school now, same with Full Sail, you know, that doesn't mean that you can't still be great at what you do and you can't learn. You just need somebody to show you the way. So hopefully AudioSchoolOnline is one of the keys to helping a lot of people with that. And the last thing on my list, number 21, without number 2 through 20, number 1, talent is completely worthless. You can be the most talented person on the planet, but if you don't want to work for it, it's going to either go away quickly or never come to pass. And I've seen so many insanely talented people just never get a foothold in this industry because they're not willing to do all of the other things on the list. So, you know, think about all of those things, and you know, I think one of the most important things on that list is just to have a positive attitude about everything. I see so much negativity just out there. Certainly, I mean, the internet is just jam-packed with negativity, man, people are unhappy. Like, I try and stay away from negative people. I try and stay away from negative situations. I hate being in them. They affect me. I don't like it. I like being around positive people and positive situations and people that are really happy to be making music for a living. Or who are really happy to be trying to make music for a living, and whatnot. So, you know, everybody is going through some sort of struggle. Probably every single person in this room has something that they're like, oh, I can't believe this is happening right now, or, you know, a month ago something terrible happened. Everybody's going through something. And, you know, just kind of remember that as you make your way through life, that everybody is struggling and you have no idea what other people are going through. So if somebody's a little pissy at you one day, just let it slide off, man. They're just having a bad day. Don't let it affect you. If you stay positive and you stay focused on what your goals are, you're going to go much, much further. If you complain about everything, if you look for a scapegoat as to why something's not happening for you every time something happens, you're going to go nowhere and you're going to blame everybody else. And 5 years from now, you're going to look back and you're going to be like, that never happened for me. Why? You know, why did all these people stop me? Well, they didn't. You did. So, a few other things I want to touch on. Health. Pay attention. So, I basically spent my entire 20s awake, working 8 days a week, doing insane hours. And I used to think it was a badge of honor. You know, I used to think, man, if I do this 40-hour session, you know, this is what I need. And to an extent, you know, some of those definitely helped me out. But in my mid-30s, I had to have life-saving open heart surgery because I basically didn't sleep in my 20s. I had no risk factors, none. No high cholesterol, no smoking, no family history, none of that. I had one risk factor, sleep deprivation. I should be dead right now. So get your sleep. And the great thing about sleep is, other than how great it just is, you can still sleep 8 hours a day and still have 16 more hours in that day to work, or to enjoy, or to whatever. And you will be much more creative. This has been scientifically proven that people are much more creative. Your brain works in so much better ways when you have good sleep than when you're sleep deprived. When you're sleep deprived, you look at that screen and you'll be like, you'll do the same thing 4 times and it'll take you 10 minutes to do what would have taken you 1 or 2 minutes if you were fresh and focused and creative. So get your sleep. It's actually really important on so many levels. Take care of yourself. Drink water. One thing that I found out over the years, which I wish somebody would have told me in my 20s, a lot of times when you're feeling really tired, it's because you're dehydrated. So if you're only drinking energy drinks all night, or you're, you know, drinking soda and you're not drinking any water and you're really tired and the caffeine's not working anymore, you're probably dehydrated. So drink your water. What other good nuggets can I impart to all of you? Teamwork. So I'm a part of several teams, and I have the most badass team of people around me. I would not have the career that I have, period, without having a great team around me. I have great managers, which were incredibly hard to find. I've been through so many managers. And you know, I've been through some really heavy hitter managers who were great managers, but they weren't great managers for me. And you know, when you're on kind of the bottom of somebody's totem pole, chances are you're going to get ignored. And finding a great manager is just as much about how hard they're willing to work with and for you, and realizing that that's a team collaboration than anything else. My managers now are the best managers I've had in 22 years of being a professional, and they're young guys. They don't have a ton of experience, but man, they are hungry. They find ways through doors that just shock me on a daily basis what they're able to accomplish. So put a great team together. You know, my team is Brent Colatalo is my production partner. My wife is crucially important to my sanity, and she's a big supporter. And my entertainment lawyer is Chris Cabot. If any of you need great representation, Chris Cabot is absolutely fantastic person. He does great legal work. I'm so lucky to have him. I've been through 5 or 6 entertainment lawyers, and he's never leaving me. Boy Wonder is part of our extended team, BMG. And then we have this other great extended team of collaborators. We have all of these top line writers, songwriters that will that write with us and for us all the time, all over the country and all over the world. And sometimes we won't get a song in from one of them for a year, and then like this week it happened. There's this girl down in Texas who we connected, I don't know, 4 or 5 months ago, and I initially heard her and I was like, God, she is amazing. She's a great songwriter, she's got a great voice, we want to work with her. We talked about it, nothing came of it. Out of the blue, she sent me a song she wrote to one of our tracks this week, and it just blew me away. I was like, wow.
That's that track I sent you.
Is that you?
That's what brought it up, because I told her I was coming out here, and I was like, oh, kids.
Oh, thank you, dude, because that song is great.
Yeah,
And
she's
it's
amazing.
great songs are few and far between. But to me, the power of collaboration, if you can find the right people to collaborate with, is so important. Me and Brent making music together is so much more creative and so much more powerful, and the end results are so much better than if either of us had tried to do that on our own. And I've collaborated with a lot of people, and sometimes it just doesn't go well, and you're going to have a lot of that, but every once in a while you'll come across that person that you just totally click with, and you find that there's this synergy with what you guys do and what they do, and I encourage you to try and find those relationships. I think one of the keys to the music industry now is collaborations. We're constantly collaborating with Boy Wonder and a bunch of other producers, and we're always looking for top liners to collaborate with, and the more powerful and hungry your team is around you, the better you will do yourself. And if you're kind of a midline member of that team, eventually you'll work your way up to the head, and you'll break off and you'll have your own team, and you'll know how to run it because you've been a part of a great team before. So I think that's it's been one of the blessings of my career, is that I now have a really great team around me. I think you wanted the last 15 minutes for questions, so I'm done talking until I answer questions.
Okay, you came in during the time when you were a staff producer. Now engineer. How do you, would you say nowadays, since that phenomenon isn't around anymore, if you were an engineer and a producer, how would you promote yourself to professionally so that people come to you nowadays, if you were new?
You promote yourself with credits, and if you don't have credits, you got to find a way to get them. And one of the things you learn over time is that credits are much more valuable than money is. The right credits, not just any credit, but if you're faced with the dilemma of taking a gig that you'd really like to take, but the money's not quite right, and you ask yourself, in a year, am I going to care that I didn't make enough money on this, or am I going to care that I worked on this record? And I'll give you a good example. One record that I mixed for about a quarter of my rate at the time was CeCe Winans' Pray. The single won a Grammy, the album won a Grammy. I mixed it out of my own studio, so I get to say I've mixed Grammy-winning stuff out of my own studio. That was the first time it's happened. It's happened since. But I almost turned that gig down, and I was thinking, like, well, I've never worked with CeCe Winans. I've always respected, her and BB, and that seems like a gig that I really want to do. So I did it, and I won 2 Grammys from it. Like, you never know what's going to lead to what else. And that credit is still on my resume and will be till the end of time. The money that I made on it, even if I would have gotten full rate, would have been spent in a month and I'd have forgotten about it and I'd be on to trying to make other money, but that credit is forever. So always value credits over anything else, and if you're, say, a young hip-hop producer or something like that, you know, try and get on mixtapes. You know, you're probably going to have to give away some free stuff to some talented people until you get a foothold. But if you get, you know, like a, I don't know, who's up and coming right now, who's just breaking out, like a, you know, Ty Dolla $ign or you know, I don't know, whoever. If you get on there, you know, I can't think of anybody. Too many people on the come up that I haven't worked with yet. But if you establish a relationship with them early, they'll probably forget you later on. That happens. It still happens to me. But hopefully, you'll get some experience, you'll get credit, and if you're a producer, you got to be producing every day. If you're not producing every day, somebody else is, and somebody else is going to take that gig and that opportunity that you want. So,
Hi. So my question is in regards to like sound. So I'm in a band, and one of the things that we are kind of struggling with is rock and roll and pop, and like how to stay relevant but still infuse the organic sounds that people respect. What's your feeling on rock and roll? Is it like dead?
Yes.
Or okay? See, he's shaking his head no.
Easy answer. And that's unfortunate because I love rock and I grew up on it, and it killed itself. It's really responsible for its own undoing for so many reasons. I could spend another hour talking about that. But here's the thing. In my own personal opinion, take it for what it's worth to you. So many artists and so many bands who are incredibly talented refuse to change what they're doing at all so they can stay true to themselves or not sell out or you know, whatever. You have all of these pie-in-the-sky ideas about your own music because it's your baby and it's so personally important to you, but nobody else gives a shit. Nobody else cares. And until you capture those people, nobody else cares. So if your sound is not catching people right now, but you think that, well, you know, I mean, we might lose our integrity if we strip off some of the rock, but maybe if we change up our sound, this, like, a perfect example would be Carly Rae Jepsen. That was a folk song, the Call Me Maybe. That was a folk song that got remixed. Now, she could have very easily said, well, I'm a folk artist. I'm, you know, no. I'm not this pop chick, I'm not going to do it. And nobody would have ever heard of Carly Rae Jepsen. And now she's got an entire career for it. One other quick example, I developed this artist last year who is insane, but I won't mention any names. But we had a bunch of great songs. Virtually every major label president was interested in them. They had been showcasing, we thought for sure we were going to get them a deal. And they decided that they didn't want that musical direction, that they wanted to do their own thing and call their own shots and write their own ticket. And they got rid of all of our songs, dropped our camp, and went on their own, and nobody's ever heard from them since. And you gotta realize, like, a perfect example is Capital Cities. So the song Safe and Sound, everybody familiar? Have you heard anything else from Capital Cities? I haven't either. I mean, if you love them, hey, great. The rest of their record, I think, is god-awful. It's terrible. But they have one amazing, amazing hit, and they'll have a career for the next 10 years off of that one song, because either they allowed themselves to be tailored and structured a little bit, or they woke up and realized, like, if I don't change something about what we're doing, we're never going to break through.
So in terms of the organic instruments, though, the guitar itself, is that always going to be relevant, or do you think it's eventually going to be all...
Depends how you use it.
Okay.
I mean, wait. So, what's that? Jack White? Well, I mean, there's always going to be the relative, you know, there's always going to be brilliant, relevant artists. The question is, do you think you are going to be one of them on your current path? And the fact that you're questioning it might tell you something.
Well, I know for sure it's gotta be, like I was telling my friend Chris, like music is like fashion. Nowadays, everything has spandex, you know, like I feel like that's the fashion, and music is fashion, and those sounds and those textures, but everybody wears pants and dresses and things like that, so it's kind of like.
First of all, it all starts with a great song.
Yeah.
If you don't have a great song, you're probably never going to break through. A great song will change people's minds faster than you can blink. And a really, 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 really good song, nobody cares about. There's a lot of really, really good songs. That's the curse of songwriters, really, is one of the toughest things to learn is when you've written a really, really, really good song that nobody's going to care about, but you love it because it's so good. It's really, really good. But it's not great, and it's never going to be great. And the more people that you play your really, really good song for, the more disservice you're doing yourself, because they're going to walk away from that experience going, well, they're not great. I say that on a regular basis. They're not great. They're good. Maybe. Maybe they'll come back in a year and play me a hit.
I have just a quick analogy for the young lady. I mean, we wore cotton and wool for 4,000 years,
Yeah.
right? It's always relevant. So whether it's a guitar or a piano, I think what Ken is saying is it's not necessarily the material, but how you present it, how you use it, and how is it relevant today. Right? I mean, if it's 100 degrees, we're not going to wear, like, full-on trench coats, but you can still use wool and cotton, but make it relevant.
Yeah, I put guitar on a lot of our productions.
Yeah.
But I put it in a way that really makes sense.
Too, you know, there's the guitar on the computer, but then there's actually the real organic thing. And
So my
just-
suggestion
yeah.
is don't get caught up in what you think
Yeah.
you want. And just make the best music that you can, and
Yeah.
hopefully it'll stick. Who's in the back?
Yeah, what advice do you have for someone who isn't 20-something, who actually remembers those Tascam 4-track?
What are your goals?
Music production.
Okay.
Songwriter, drums,
And you want to do this full time,
yeah,
and you don't yet.
yeah.
Here's the problem with this scenario. Once you've gotten comfortable with making money, it's really, really, really hard to stop making money long enough to change your career and to weather those tough times until you start making money doing something else.
Well, I'm doing that already.
All right, well then you're one of the very few who at least is making the commitment. Like S1 has a great story of how he made it, and he basically did the same thing. He had a good paying job, but he just wasn't catching as a producer, and he really believed in himself. He had that, what did I call it, self-confidence and self-belief. And he and his wife talked, and he was like, all right, I'm gonna quit my job for, I think, 6 months or so, and I'm really gonna make a go of this. And really just, we're gonna, cut off the cable, we're gonna stop going out to dinner, we're gonna cut every expense that we can possibly cut, and let me see if I can have a career. And man, did it work out for him. But most people, you say like, oh, I'm 35 and I hate my job, and God, I love music, I want to do it so badly, but your job pays you $40,000 a year, and guess what? Music is going to pay you $40 a year for the next 2 years. So how, if you can stomach that transition, then you have a shot. But if you can't stomach that transition, or if you're not honest with yourself about where you're at, if you're only writing good songs, or really good songs, or really, really good songs, then you need to find a way or an inspiration to write great, and to push yourself and challenge yourself to always get better. As a top,
Can I just add
Sure.
on? I mean, wouldn't you agree that you have to write bad songs and really good songs before you write great songs?
well, some people kind of get lucky out of the gate. Some people are kind of born naturals at it, but most of the rest of us, myself included, yes, it's like anything else. Like I like to refer to Michael Phelps. Michael Phelps didn't win 8 gold medals in one Olympics because he's a gifted swimmer. Clearly, he is an absolutely fantastically gifted swimmer. He won 8 gold medals in Olympics because he was in the pool for 5 to 8 hours a day, 7 days a week for 4 years straight leading up to that Olympics. He put in the time. He outworked everybody else. He had the raw talent, and he did something with it. And that's, I think, the difference between most people who don't quite make it and the ones that do. And, you know, and being honest with yourself and being able to kind of self-critique your work and knowing when it's only really good and how to push yourself into that great is something that it's really elusive. So, you.
How do you feel about, you and I are about the same age, but how do you...
27? You look good for 27, man.
Two-part question. How do you feel about, I'm pretty sure everybody's tired of hearing this, how do you feel about the state of music now? Because, you know, I'm from like 70s, 80s, 90s.
I hear this a lot.
Yeah, and how do you feel about engineering now as opposed to...
What doesn't resonate with you and you know, and not let it affect you and not be one of those people who's like, music sucks, music sucks. Really? Okay, well, music sucks, make some great music. That's what I'm trying to do. I mean, you know, I hear plenty of stuff that I'm like, how did that get on something? You know, and I go like, wow, I could do so much better than that, and I'm always trying to do that, but then I hear an Adele song and I'm just like, oh, that's amazing, that's a gift. So, what was your second question?
Engineering.
Oh, engineers. Yeah, well, unfortunately, the real best place to get your education as an engineer coming up in the world used to be working at a big studio where all of the top producers and mixers would come through and you'd get to assist for them or be the intern in the room or eventually work yourself up to engineer. I mean, I got my education in urban and hip hop from guys like Just Blaze and Kanye West and, you know, and a plethora of all of the other producers that I got to engineer for. And now I can produce that stuff as good as they can because they were my teachers. You know, Berkeley didn't teach me how to do urban music. Crazy. But you know, in this field, it's really about teaching yourself to a great extent. And I feel there has certainly kind of been a bit of a lost art of engineering. There's certainly a lot of great people out there who do it, but man, you know, when young engineers nowadays look at a drum kit like it's an alien object, that to me is, I don't get it, but you know, it's different times. So I think the people who really strive to be great at what they do are going to rise. But there's just so many records being made that there's a lot of bad engineers out there. But you know what? There always has been. Always. There's terrible engineers.
As a sound mixing professional, what would you personally prefer in terms of technology platform to facilitate your work? What tools, what sounds?
Oh, I have it. My own personal preference is a hybrid analog-digital setup. I mix on an SSL. You know, I have a huge Pro Tools system. I have as much power as I can put into it. I have great mic pre's and great mics. You know, I've basically accumulated all of my favorite gear over 22 years, so I've kind of been lucky to do that. But yeah, the analog purists, except for like the Jack Whites of the world who really have the budgets to be an analog purist, you know, I don't really get it. I think gear are just tools. They're, you know, at the end of the day, your ears and your brain and your gut are going to be the main drivers of what you're working on. And hopefully you have tools good enough to help you get there and feel creative, but they're just tools. So, you.
What do you think is the most challenging thing about the mixing process?
Knowing when something's finished. When you've gotten there, when to stop tweaking, when you know you're not there yet. It's definitely, that's really difficult, and I'll give you some tips on how to know. So, if you've never done this, this will really help. When you're mixing and you think you're done, back away from the controls and force yourself not to touch the controls. Move your chair back 2 or 3 feet, or open the door and walk down the hallway and turn the music up and listen to your mix. And I guarantee you, you're going to hear some shit that you're like, oh, I can't. What was I thinking? So, and the other hardest thing about mixing, I think, that the aspiring mixers have real problems with, is you're not listening to the big picture. So you're listening to the kick drum or the vocal or the guitar or the bass line, but you're not listening to the song. And you forget that you're mixing a song. And you've got to figure out how to put that song together. Not that kick drum, nobody cares what you do with 100 hertz. I don't think in frequencies at all. I think in music. When I'm working on a song, all of my decisions are based on what does the song need. That's where all of my questions innately start. What does the song need? What, you know, is the vocal speaking to me? Is it hitting me the right way? Is it eliciting the emotional response that I'm looking for? Those types of things are the questions that I ask. And I don't think in terms of frequencies, I think in terms of how is everything working together? How is the groove feeling? How is the, you know, how is the vocal? Can I understand every word? Those types of things. And, you know, that's something that just practice is.
What's next for Ken Lewis? I always see you as cutting edge. You were the first one to start Pro Tools education on.
I was at least on my level. I was the first guy who offered mixing to the world online.
And you also one of the first engineers to reach out to Asian artists.
Yeah. I got lucky there, man.
And so,
and Jamaican.
And so,
yeah. It's crazy. I've worked with some huge Jamaican artists. I'm like a white kid from the suburbs of Cincinnati. I don't know how I got all these great Jamaican artists to work with.
So then, I mean, from what I gather, you're putting together a super camp of songwriters or creating your own content. And
trying.
And so, what do you see Ken Lewis doing for the next year?
Well, I mean, I think I've got many goals. Me and Brent, Catalyst, the two of us are quickly making a name for ourselves. I don't think we've had that breakthrough moment yet. We've come really close so many times. We had a single with Ciara, and then she got pregnant, and L.A. Reid put the kibosh on the whole promotion. We had a single with Future, and Future's first single tanked, so when the second single came out, L.A. Reid put no promotion into it. So we keep like getting up to the plate with the bases loaded, and we're like, all right, it's going out of the park this time, man. This is it. And you know, you strike out, and you're like, another brick wall. There it is, another brick wall. Let me climb over this one. So you know,
we have time for one more question.
Well, let me answer the rest of that real quick. The next big thing I have coming, other than hopefully I'm going to be the biggest producer in the world in a year's time. I just founded. And it will launch in maybe 2 months. It'll launch really big, hopefully in January or February, Music School Online. So musicschoolonline.com is going to be a streaming site that teaches guitar, bass, drums, piano and keyboard, voice, music theory, and we'll have a whole kids section too. And the cool thing about what we're doing is all of the teachers that I have doing lessons and tutorials for us all have credits on big records. So they're all of the people who are playing on the stuff that people who want to learn music are, you know, want to learn, and we're teaching very current, modern stuff that you'd hear on the radio, be it country radio or urban radio or pop radio, and so that's the next thing coming for me. I'm actually really excited about it. I think it's going to be huge, and I think it's with the way that schools are cutting back on their music education programs across the country, I'm hoping that we can fill a little bit of that gap. So,
one more question. Who hasn't had a question?
You. I want to know what's your take on. I know you have a lot of experience with the recording industry, recording artists. What's your take on music for film, music for like television, advertising?
I know that the paychecks for it have gotten reduced, like almost to unlivable wages anymore for most people. Like one of my best friends has hundreds of credits writing for film and TV, hundreds, and they can barely pay their rent nowadays because the fees that TV and film are paying out compared to what they used to are just going down and down and down because the market's oversaturated and they know that they can get you for a song, so they do. So there's certainly money to be made there. It's not easy to make those connections. To me, it's all about relationships. If you score the right relationships and you really nurture those really well, then you can hook up with the people who have the connections and who will hopefully place your music. But keep in mind that the power of a hit record is mostly what drives music placements at film and TV. Somebody gets a hit record, then all of a sudden you hear 6 of their other songs on the record being being placed. And unfortunately, that's who, you know, you got to walk a mile in their shoes and ask, well, what do they want? And so let me actually close by saying that, because this is a really, really important thing. I see people make this mistake constantly, being, you know, you have an argument or a disagreement with somebody, or you're in a contract negotiation. I find this most valuable in my life during contract negotiations. When you're negotiating with somebody or you're arguing with somebody, stop for a moment and take off your shoes and put on their shoes and walk a mile and ask yourself, I'm them, what do they want? What do they want out of this? What's their end game? What's their goal? I know what I want, and selfishly, I just want everything that I want. But what do they want? Because if you don't understand really what they want, you're never going to come to an agreement, and if you do understand what they want, you'll probably find creative ways to get there. And far too many people look at contract negotiations black and white. It's like, it's either this or that, or blah, blah, blah. But man, there's 16 different shades of gray in ways to find common ground, and you should be looking for that common ground. And you're only going to do that if you really take a good hard look at what they want. And that goes towards, like, a lot of people ask me, you know, well, I need a manager to get me work. Really? Well, what does the manager need? Because if you're not getting work, why do they want to manage you? You're talented, guess what? There's a lot of talented people in this world. Can you bring them income? Because the manager wants to get paid. So if you walk a mile in a manager's shoes and go, well, I want a manager, what do they want? What can I offer them that's going to entice them to give me what I want, which is a great manager? And if you can't find that, if you can't answer that question, you're probably not going to find a great manager. So I think that bit of advice has really helped me tremendously to kind of negotiate this, this music industry, and just be able to always ask yourself, well, what's in it for them, and how can I give them what they want so they can give me what I want? It's really important.
Thank you so much, Ken. Thank you so much for coming out.